can start the stream, brother.
Oh yeah, no, take us away, Masego. Introductions, everything. Let's go.
Hey, what up? We live on Twitch. This is our first stream as Abby's book club. Everybody spam W's in the chat right now. That's the most important thing. Spam W's in the chat. Spam W's in the chat. I'm excited to be here, Kat. You know why?
Why?
We're going to talk about books. That's why. We're going to talk it up. Yeah, spam W's in the chat. We're going to talk about amazing books. We have a tradition, by the way, at Abby's Book Club. Every time we start any of our podcasts, we have to hold the book of the month up to the screen. So everybody grab a book right now. Everybody I'll forgive the ones that got the ebook, and I won't tell everyone where you got it. It's cool. There you go. We're reading Bonang Mohale's Lift as You Rise. Where to start? I think a good place to start is the fact that, the book's not written by Bonang Mohale. I think we all thought, well, I certainly did, that when we get into the book, we're going to be reading just Bonang Mohale's thoughts, but this is somebody else's interpretation of his thoughts. Fifi, do you know who the author is?
I should. It starts.
You should know who the author is. Liz, it's on you. Liz looks nervous already.
I forgot the name of the author.
I will get her name for you, please.
It's a female author.
I have no wine with you.
Tamara.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, say that again. Tamara
Oberholster.
How do you spell her name? Maybe let's search her up. Tamara.
I don't know how good this camera is. Let's see.
Spell her surname.
Oberholder. What she says.
Tamara Oberholster, very young lady. From the seams of it, I'm looking at her LinkedIn profile as we speak. Would have been great to get a Wikipedia page, but yeah, it's written by a white lady. And this is her interpretation of Bonang Mohale's life. The book is composed of Bonang Mohale's speeches and comments, as well as interactions with other people. I guess during these podcasts, we like to share our initial thoughts about the book. I'm going to come and out myself. I'm not too far in the book. So our excuse is we call this...
The glasses of wine. Where's the glasses of wine?
Oh, really?
I got water.
Can we change? Doctor, you get the memo? Like, it's a new...
There wasn't a memo.
There was... Oh, jeez.
Here.
Okay, so Tamara Oberholster is a writer, of course. I think it's written here, writer for Purple Apricot. That must be a publishing house, a media company. She's also a journalist for Freelance Bureau. So she writes a lot. She's also founder of Head World Chef. Okay, so she's just chef and writer and journalist. I think we can start there. What do you think about the fact that the book is written by someone else? Did that affect your experience of the book? Who wants to go first?
I'll take it. I'll always take it. Oh, go for it, Lizzie.
I'll go first.
Ladies first.
Thank you.
Pause. I said I'll take it.
Honestly, it didn't bother me because, I feel like the book still gave a lot of detail about who Bonang is and what he has done and the lives he has impacted. I think it's actually a good thing they used someone who has experience in publishing books, writing books, especially of that nature, because she was able to structure things in such a way that it gives us a story to follow, like with chapters. Yeah, that's what I think.
100%. I mean, she's a decent writer. My small little... Actually, Kat, you wanted to say something. I'm going to pass the buck to you.
I mean,
oh,
yeah.
Just now.
Yeah.
I was like, wait. No. Yeah, I don't know if it affected it so much. I think it's a a book that needs to be written, that needs to be out there. I think
100%.
In terms of the books we read in our club, it felt a bit lackluster, in my opinion. In terms of, I don't know, telling a story. It felt like a textbook. It felt like a bit like, okay, leadership is this. Leadership must entail that. And again, I don't say that that's a bad thing. Like, yeah, definitely tell us about leadership and what it means to have or to be a leader or to groom a leader, or what type of character you have to be a leader, and what type of role businesses play in our economy, and where leaders lie,
100%.
and, how leaders build businesses and stuff. I think just in translation of or compiling the whole book, it could have been more of a complete story.
You wanted more of a novel. You wanted to read a novel about this person's life.
Maybe not a novel about his life. Okay, maybe my book descriptions haven't gotten there, like fiction, non-fiction. I'm still not sure which is which. And I've read many books.
100%. So, they can just check out previous episodes.
Yeah. Right. So, sorry, we've got a baby crying in the background. Hold on. Let me close this window.
Okay. No, valid criticism. A valid criticism. She's presenting all of Bonang's principles in a way that you feel like is more like an instruction manual. And maybe perhaps for the person who picks up this book, somebody who's looking more for a narrative instead of pieces of a narrative and then insights derived from that narrative, that's something to consider, especially for people who read fiction. I have my thoughts about it too. But Fifi, do you have anything to say? Just advice on everyone to speak close to their microphones. They'll sound a lot better.
Mm-hmm. I'm part of the group that hasn't read very far into the book. But I personally didn't mind the textbooky feel. If anything, it lets you know this is the topic. Here's the information about the topic, and here's what someone else thought about it. Is kind of literally how it felt, and I felt it just made it a bit easier to consume the information if you're not someone who's into the really hard philosophical type stuff.
I think it's important to capture everyone's genuine experience of a book. I think I always tell Katlego this. I have a cheat code to approaching books. Right. So I don't like to speak first because I like to get everyone else's opinion out. But personally, I've come to understand that the true value of a book is not the words on the page, but really what the words mean. And I think so often we get caught up with the words, how it's written. You look at many book reviews about anything, especially people who read fiction. They are valid, very valid criticisms about how a book is written, how the plot is laid out. And I think selfishly, excuse me, I've developed a way to gain value from any book that I read. This is a very important point because you think about some of the greatest books of our time. Let's think about the greatest collection of books of our time, the biblical corpus, as Jordan Peterson likes to say, or the Bible for everyday people. The Bible is a collection of books that's probably some of the most powerful collections of writings that are out there. It's a book that peasants can read for certain, but also generals and people in high-ranking position. That same book has been used to pacify some people's minds, to justify and excuse certain behaviors. But again, that same collection of writings has been used to conquer other nations in the hands of the right person. So I want to posit it to everyone here that with every book that you read, I'm going to be biased all the time whenever we select a book because I go into it thinking, it's going to be a great book. Why? Because I'm going to be able to get what's meant to be gotten out of the book, past the level of communication or the skill in communicating that the book is imploring, right? So here's my cheat code for books. Before I read a book, I always research everything about the author, or the subject matter of the book. Last we read a book called How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And you could give that book to someone, Kat always says, you could give that book to someone, they'll pick it up and be like, I'm not really feeling this book.
Right.
And I'm like, how can that be? You know, when you study the concepts that are being brought forward into that book, right? All the different economic philosophies that are being put forward. That journey is transformative, right? And then when you go back and look at the book, suddenly those same words mean so much more, right? So part of reading books is that we have to do the work ourselves, right? We have to do the work in. The book will not do the work for us. I think many of us like books that do the work for us and tell us exactly what we need to know. So that being said, I will say my criticism, if we are starting with the criticisms, is that...
You started us off with the criticism.
My bad. Spam L's in the chat. Spam L's in the chat. I'm going to join you, Kat. I just didn't have time. Okay, so if we're starting with criticisms, my criticism would be that Bonang himself...
Hey.
What's up? Yeah, join us. We're talking books, guys.
Oh, no.
We're talking...
I'm not.
Okay.
No, keep going, Sal.
All right, let me keep going. So my criticism would be that Bonang himself, this is not really a criticism actually, is a great communicator and a great writer. So if I have any disappointment, which I don't, I'm glad that Mara took the time to shed light on this person's life, took the time to write all these pages of works, to collect everything, even the process. Process of writing a book is not easy. So I commend her on all fronts on bringing this. It's a best-selling book for a good reason. Those who are able to derive the value from it can. But whenever you get to the part of the book where we're reading Bonang's speeches, then you're like, damn, because he's a pretty effective communicator himself. And being the leader that he's had to be, it makes sense that he would have to be such an effective communicator. And part of me feels like I've been locked out on hearing more of his writing, more of the way that he would have communicated some of his stories back to us. Yeah, I mean, any thoughts on that, Katlego? Anyone?
Me? Damn it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm always trapped. No, look, like I said, I'm not mad that the book is written. I'm happy that the book is written. This is a book you can put in someone's hands and they can be like, wow, look at this person's life.
100%.
It's amazing. I just don't know if it's transformative, nor do I think that's its intention. Sorry.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm hearing myself back. Okay, cool. Nor do I think that's its intention. I think, like you've described, its intention is to kind of get some sort of eye on this man's life. Because, guys, Bonang is amazing. I think, is it someone who wrote the Ford? Who wrote the Ford? Mteto Nyati, right? He says, who wrote the Ford? Someone wrote the Ford. Someone wrote the Ford. Let me check.
Let's double back on that.
For the intro. I'm not sure. But someone said if there were 20 Bonang Mohales, the world would be in a different place. Who was that? It was in this book, right? Or am I?
It was probably in this book. Tamara wrote the foreword or the introduction to the book.
Tamara.
She did herself. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it was her. Yeah. Then it was her. Sorry. I thought I read the comment somewhere else.
No worries. But
anyway.
But continue.
Yeah. Someone said if there were 20 Bonangs, the world would be in a different state. At least Africa would be in a different state, right? And
we're gonna double click on that later in the book, by the way.
Right. So at least the fact that this book has touched us as a whole and we're able to explore it in this manner, that is amazing in itself. I'm just saying, as a reader of some books that I've considered transformative in my life, I
100%.
consider this it's definitely a cornerstone for what we can talk about and discuss because we're building a business all together and we're all building businesses individually. So it definitely is, I guess, a fueler for the conversations and the type of intellect we can hone and the type of actions and the importance of those actions. Just today, you and I, Masego, were talking about, okay, now I have all of this information. What do I do? How do I now behave? And I always say it's the work in the dark that you I guess that actually changes you, that changes how we perform. It's the work that when no one's looking, right? And we always have that conversation. So for me, what I want from a book is for it to change me. One, no one's looking. You get me? It must change me in such a manner that I'm like, oh my goodness, let's go. We need to get things done, And again, it does that in a fashion. It's just, it didn't entertain me, which I don't think is a problem. Maybe I'm just a weird person to entertain, I'm not the most intelligent man out there. But it didn't like.
It was very vanilla.
It was very point after point. I think the word leadership came up 20 times in the first chapter, and I was like, wait a minute, leadership is what? And leadership is that too? Let me get a pen and paper.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like that when I'm reading a book. Fifi, go for it.
So what I want to add is that this is a book I would give to someone who's already an executive or someone who is in a leadership position. They need guidance. This is more of what that book would do, rather than to me who's trying to find maybe leadership in myself or trying to grow a bit more. I wouldn't give that book to that person. I think that's yeah.
Here's what I think. Right. I think if we definitely.
I wanted to say something.
Yes,
go for it.
Go for it.
Listen. Katlego always advises all of our guests, if you don't take the spot in this podcast, you have to go out and take it, because it's a battleground for ideas.
You guys are drinking, you suck. I'm gonna go refill. I'll be right back.
But I just wanted to say, I fall under the group of people who didn't finish reading the book. By the way, I think I'm not even halfway there, but I've gathered a lot from the little I've read, and I disagree with Fifi and Kat.
Kat, you need to come back. You're being attacked.
Spam.
Kat, you're being attacked. I wish I had the fire emojis. Spam fire emojis in the chat. I'm gonna find them. Keep talking, Liz.
In terms of how it transformed me, I wouldn't say it's the most transformative book I've read in my entire life, but it's added on to that collection. I say this because of parts where they wrote, what's her name? Where Tamara wrote about where Tamara wrote about being more people-centered, and also about how when you are more focused on profits, your business is bound to fail. Whereas when you're focused on survival and adding value to people, that's when your business will really survive. So I took a lot from that. Hence, I disagree with the two of you regarding that. But it's not the most transformative book I've ever read. Definitely not. But it did add a lot of value into my life. And I plan on finishing it and, like gathering more information from it. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, you know what? We might be punishing Tamara here for making the book so easy to understand, right? Because we're used to grasping. The books that we've read previously, for sure, made us work to get the value that's put in the book. And Tamara just says, there it is. I described it as vanilla earlier. It's just like, there it is. There's the answer. And it's like, sometimes that can be underwhelming. Like, that's the answer? I must be more people-centric. That's what I've been missing. I've been suffering this whole time, and all I needed to know is, leadership is about putting other people first. Damn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why I said I wanted a story, right? Because, for instance, And again, I
just try to speak closer to the mic, Cat. You're gonna sound a lot better.
Sorry.
Don't worry. Oh, look
again,
at that.
Which is why I said it's not as transformative, right? I mean, it's not as I used the word earlier. Damn it. Okay, I missed it. Okay, it's fine.
It's okay.
But for instance, and again, not to compare, but I'm comparing. Marcus Aurelius in the meditations
100%.
Today, know that you'll be dealing with trivial and trifling people.
Yeah, dishonest people, etc.,
Dishonest people who are going to betray you, people who are going to, and in his lessons, you kind of have to try and dissect why you need to be people-centric anyway.
100%.
And though you face trials and tribulations, though today you don't feel like it, or whatever the case may be, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, as our Caucasian friends will say. I'm kidding. I'm drinking alcohol. Anyway, right. So for me, it's definitely a good book, and like you said, maybe we're criticizing her for making it too easy to get the value, And
it's fair, it's valid.
There's a lot more nuance, and there's a deeper understanding of Bonang we can take home. Like I think there was a transcript from a lady in the book where she talks about his experience or her experience with him and his humility and how he greets every car guard and how he treats his driver and how he treats the boardroom people, like how he does that each and every day. He communicates with everyone. Just the other day, Fifi and I were talking about every time I come to Joburg, I don't greet people because they don't greet me. You get
Yeah.
Like when I'm home, even if I raise my hand a little bit, I don't even know where it came from.
Hey, like
I won't even know where it came from. I'll be like, I wasn't even greeting you, but I'm gone. And you just move on. But when I come over here, it's like the energy is like, it's like me against you. It's like when I greet you, it's like I need to greet you twice, and I must be like, stop, exhale. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that type of energy is not in everyone. It's not dropped in everyone. Bonang is definitely a special person. And why I say it's not transformative, it's like, for me, it's like, I'm human. I'm gonna, like I just said, I'm not gonna greet you. Y'all don't greet out here in Igoli.
100%.
On the street. Y'all don't greet. I don't know what to tell you. So I stopped. I don't know what to tell you. So
I think I understand. I think I understand the issue. This book is written from the perspective, well, a large part of it, of an observer of Bonang, right? And I think you're saying that there's a level of depth that Bonang yields himself that must exist. There must be something to it. There must be a qualifier. There must be, why do I greet everyone even though it doesn't make sense to do it? The observer is just saying, wow, Bonang is a great person. He greets everyone. And, the way he's really that guy, and you're saying there's something else in Bonang's mind that I don't even think he can say some of those thoughts out loud, just from the stuff that we've read. Right. From the other stuff that we've read, like, again, if you're going to compare it to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, Marcus was not writing with the intention that anyone was ever going to read his journal. It was a personal journal, right? And then that got published. And that, in a sense, has its own type of value, where it's like kind of with this, again, you have to, although it's laid out simply, some of the most subtle stuff you have to infer. You need to be on the same level as Bonang. Like, I think it was Lizzie who said, I would give this to an executive because they would know the unsaid truths that are in between the lines of what's being. The executive knows. Exactly. The executive has had to find a compromising situation where they had to choose whether or not to be ethical, and they chose wrongly, and they observed how they felt in choosing wrongly, but they also observed how they felt like they had no other choice. And some of those things they can't admit, right? So it's like, maybe that's what's missing from the book, is some of those.
Maybe.
you can't be that perfect. Bonang.
No.
Bonang.
Not
Give
even
it to
that
us.
He can't be that perfect. He can,
For sure.
And again, I don't want this to be a conversation between the two of us. This often happens. So if you guys have anything to say, please
Jump in.
I don't think it's not even like that. He's this imperfect gentleman in the book. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case for anybody. But I think it's just missing that story, because when we look at, let's talk about a movie, for instance, I don't know, pick a romance. When we look at the characters, it's always like, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I don't feel great. And then they go through training, and then they go
the hero's journey.
and then they, yeah, I can do anything. I just feel like we're at the end of the movie, and we didn't get a
maybe like
story.
some of the things.
So you're talking character development.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But you know what, Kat? It's a bit unfair because the character development, it is there, especially when they start off with where he comes from. I thought that's supposed to be.
The intro was fire.
Okay, 100%.
Oh, I didn't say that earlier. Sorry. The intro was fire. Sorry. Sorry. The intro
it's
was
okay.
fire. The intro was sweet. Yeah.
Just as a balancing factor, I get what you're saying. Where at the end of the movie, we kind of already know how it ends. He's a great leader, right?
Yeah. Right. And then there's a lot of things about how to lead, like for you, and a lot of context and a lot of thought in what to, I guess, think about as a leader.
Sure, but
It's transformative.
Sure, but you have to dig. I think that introduction sets the stage. If you yourself can reflect, again, you have to do I guess that's the criticism. You have to do the heavy lifting for the book, right? But if you do the heavy lifting, I think the book has an intention and it achieves its intention well. These are personal thoughts. Just to put it out there, for anyone considering, should I pick up the book? Yes. Pick it up.
Definitely.
Read it.
Guys, like I said, I'm not saying the book should not be bought.
For sure. I'm sure. Listen, I'm sure everybody already understands the style of our podcast, right? If you read it and make your own opinion about the book. Right. Don't listen to this podcast and be like, they said it was vanilla. No. Go read it and have the experience that we're having. But the introduction of the book, how Bonang's life was, right? Where he grew up, right? Let's talk a little bit more about the plot of this book. Bonang is this kid who grows up in a township. That alone, for me, is loaded. Now, if you're a person who grew up in the suburbs, went to private schools your whole life, has some sort of perception of what it might be like growing up in tougher conditions, but not really a first-hand experience, and a first-hand experience that's detailed over a long period of time, where you even understand nuances of the kind of forces you're fighting against to be somewhat of a functional person. If you don't have that background, that one sentence means nothing. I always use this as an example. Martin Luther said, "I had a dream." That means nothing. But those are some of the most important words that were ever uttered. When you understand everything that's surrounding Martin having a dream, right? How dare he even have a dream under those conditions?
Right.
He's not supposed to dream about anything, just fall into line. So likewise with Bonang, he's born in the township of Katlego. No, hey, don't let me lie.
It's Katlego.
Hold on. I have a section. He's born in Benoni. Went to school in Katlego at 6 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the facts. Also the notepad.
That's where the notes come in handy.
Yeah.
Born in Benoni, then goes to school in Katlego. That alone, when you think about his character, is like, actually, what the hell? How are you a nice person? Think about the myriads of people that surround you in that same environment. He's clearly an outlier, right? He's clearly an outlier because all of the lessons that he teaches are lessons that I'm learning now in my privileged position.
Yeah, but we talk about that, right, all the time. Like when something is protected, it takes longer. Well, they did an experiment, right? We talked about this, right? No?
When something is expand.
Like when something is sheltered, it dies quicker than something that's exposed to the sun and then like harsh conditions and winds and stuff.
Okay,
Like
we didn't speak about that here, but yeah.
I don't know if that was me and you, but yes. So basically, they had grown plants in a very secure environment. They controlled the conditions, everything.
Okay, just be aware of the mic. Always, please.
And they found that the trees would grow very quickly in that space, but then they found that they would also die quite quickly. And what they had found is that the reason trees grow so slowly is because they are building the resistance to the environment around them. So once it is a large tree, it has already built the toughness it needs to continue to sustain itself, compared to trees we grow in a sheltered dome where we control all the variables.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Exactly that. That's speaking to exactly what I'm saying about his upbringing. Okay, I guess in that sense, you're saying that his upbringing was an advantage, but still.
No, it's a gift and a curse.
Yeah,
of course. Still, there's so many stories from his childhood that for me made me emotional. There is.
Okay, go.
There is. That for me made me quite emotional. His dad dies at 17 years old. Let's talk about that. Right? I think it was 17 years old. His dad dies at 17 years old. Again, he's being raised in a township school. Bonang has this way of looking at the worst situations positively. It's almost impossible to get a negative perspective out of him. He's when you think about Egyptian culture and mythology or African culture and mythology, there's this concept of alchemy, right?
Double click on that.
It's the process
and mythology. African culture and mythology.
Culture and mythology.
Sorry.
So there's this concept of alchemy, which is the process or the science of turning base metals into gold, right? So the idea of turning lead into gold. And it's really a metaphor. Some allude to it being a physical science, like a physics subject, but some allude to it being a metaphysical science, meaning that it transcends just what's physically going on. In African culture and philosophy, by the way, everything is connected to everything else. So things that seem mundane are paradoxically profound as well. There's nothing that's mundane, essentially. It just depends on, and I think that's how I approach books. No book is mundane. No book is not good, right? And I need people to understand that that's the level that I'm talking at. Not that you can't genuinely critique books and say this could have been written better. Like you can critique any song, any other piece of writing. But if you have the mind for it, you must be able to transverse those levels of thought as well.
Right.
So Bonang is the perfect embodiment of that principle. It's like you can throw anything at him, right? In African culture recognizes that, I don't know how to say this without being vulgar. Poo, shit, manure. Shit is manure, right? Although it's putrid and terrible and disgusting, it's fertility for the ground to birth something else, right? And death is transformation. Right, so that's how you see it. A loss is a gain of something else. There's always equal balancing forces in life, in everything, in physical, and you can extend that out kind of fractally to everything else. And I've never seen Bonang deviate from that, like ever in anything that he says. Bonang told stories about how his parents used to beat the living hell out of him when he was young. And he made it sound like you're missing out for not having that experience. No, I didn't read that in the book. No, I didn't read that in the book. Sorry.
Wait a minute.
No.
Where are you getting all these stories, bro? You see, but that's what I'm talking about. You see?
Again, we're going to get to the book.
I could have used that in here. You get me? We could have used that in here.
I 100% get you. Remember, I prefaced by saying that my cheat code for understanding books is learning everything about the character, everything about the context, about the words that are being written. That's my cheat code.
For sure.
Right? So he would tell stories like that about how he grew up and he was like beaten by his parents and his teachers, by the way. So there's a story where Bonang is going to his school in Katlego, and the principal will always be waiting by the gate, right? And if the principal sees you and there's a piece of paper next to you and you don't pick it up, he would whoop you, like you'd get a beating. That reminded me of like my private school upbringing, except we got demerits. We had a system.
We had a little minus 5 points.
Yeah.
You'd get a penalty.
Which was really good. The only time I got demerits was when I wasn't shaving. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what are we doing here?
Exactly. So, I mean, he tells that story in reverence of his principal, right? Because he saw the value of what the principal was trying to teach him. I think about Kendrick Lamar's song, Fear. And in Kendrick Lamar's song, he describes how his mother would constantly beat him as well. Kendrick's mom, I think. And he describes where the love comes from there, to say that, I think at the end of the song, he says something like, the mom says, you'll fear me if you don't fear no one else. And you have to imagine the environment, again, that this was taking place in. In apartheid South Africa, if you got out of line, the consequences could amount to you being hanged. There was a death penalty in a system that already looked at you unfairly and discriminatorily with discrimination. So you think about corporal punishment and you think that was so evil. And it's like, yo, you better fear me. If you don't fear your teachers, if you don't fear taking drugs on the street, you're going to fear me. And I'm going to make you fear me, because what's out there in the world is so much more evil. Now, I don't know if people generally think about that, about the troublesome things that are going on in their lives. Liz, what do you think about like what I just said?
Whoa, like you're putting me on the spot here. I'm joking.
There you go.
What you're saying is very profound. We don't really think about the trouble that we have in our lives, or rather the things that we go through when we're younger, be it corporal punishment or whatever form of punishment that we have at that point in time. We don't think about the effect that it can have in the long term. So what you're saying makes one really reflect on their journey in life and how to make things better, or rather how to not repeat certain things that were done in the past. So yeah, that's the best way I can articulate myself in that regard.
100%. Fifi, do you have any thoughts to that point? Or are you just listening? Are you reflecting?
That's when I'm reflecting. I'm sitting here like,
yeah.
How did we get there? So let me.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's exactly the type of transformative in this book with myself. Unfortunately, now I have to be naked in front of you guys and have this conversation.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
You know, but anyway, like, I still appreciate tomorrow. If you're watching or if you're listening, I still appreciate you for writing this book. But 100%, you know, yeah, that story is what kind of attaches me, the real person, to the problem at hand. That story is kind of one of those
relatability.
Go, okay, I need to get up at 4 because there's no way in my shelteredness I'm not competing with Bonang, beating Bonang. You know, there's no way. Where's my lashing? What's my whipping? You know, who's whipping me? Where do I
just
get
getting
my whipping from?
you just getting free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm just getting a pass. I'm just getting a pass through life, you know, and that type of, because, you know, again, to relate it to a conversation we've had, you know, we have this conversation about people who don't understand racism. You know, we talk about white people in South Africa who don't really even understand when they're being racist. It's just their nature. And then we go, it's a problem. But like, think about that for a second. They don't understand they're being racist. It's just in their nature. So they kind of need that kind of at home transformative thing to go, okay, no, that's not right. We're not going to yell at them and they're going to start getting it. You know, we're not going to be like, yeah, shoot the Buddha. Okay, I get it. I'm taking it. But you know what I mean? They're not going to start getting it after we do that. Yeah. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, I understand.
Oh,
there's an episode of South Park. And I said this in one of our previous episodes where there's an episode in South Park where Token is talking to Kenny. Sorry, I'm beating my hand in my fist, so it's making this noise. Okay, I think Token is talking to Kyle or Stan, one of the two, and they were trying.
Token is the black character in South Park, right?
Right. Yeah. And they're trying to figure out what it is about slavery that's so bad. They keep telling him, "I get it. It's because of this. I get it. It's because of that." And then at the end of the episode, Kyle is like, "Oh, dude, I get it. I don't get it." You know? Oh, dude, I get it.
That's amazing. I don't get it. Yeah.
That type of realization comes from a story. You know? You kind of putting me there, you know? And going, yo, damn it, bro. You were getting beaten, cops on the street. You couldn't even, but you still today, you know, look at us with the smile, like we're gonna do bits, guys. Let's go. You know, that for me, this conversation alone, which always happens, is transforming me in a way that I feel like the first few pages should have. It did. Like I said, the intro is fire. But the whole textbooky feel,
you wanted more. I wanted
more. After the intro, I wanted you to keep going. You know, bring his mama in, bring his dad in, bring them in. Like, you know.
You wanted more. I agree.
Yeah. So
I agree.
Again, I agree with your comment. You know, if you go deeper into his story, into his life, if we become Tamara and we go and observe ourselves, you know, and we go and have a look at the entire discography, we might come out with what we're looking for. So
spam W's for that one. Spam W's in the chat for that one.
So yeah, no, 100%. Again, like I'm saying, it's not a bad book. It's a really good book. It's just I would have loved that story in there, and Masego was gone for some reason. Is that just me?
Yeah, he just fell away.
The stars happened.
He's gone.
Spam L's in the chat.
Spam L's. Yeah. Oh, but what do you guys think about what I just said? Without myself biased.
Essentially, I guess I want to understand how did he get to his thought process of saying, I'm not going to abandon my people. Because our people will let you down 100th times before they go, oh, right, I'm supposed to do it this way. And Bonang, in his journey, has continued to say, I will continue to lift them up as I rise, as the title says.
Because that's the thing, you have to be patient. Like, not everyone has the same mindset as one group of people and another group of people. It's impossible. Hence, patience is a virtue. Because imagine if someone gave up on you. Where would you be in life right now? So, you get what I mean? So, yeah.
And they've had plenty of opportunities to, by the way. Plenty.
I love when you count me.
I was a problem.
Yeah, and I agree with those opinions and those views. You know, it takes a special type of person. It just, for me, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to sacrifice? What do I need to, change in my mindset? Or how do I then navigate my trials and tribulations? Not necessarily how, but, that demeanor is tough,
I know how. It's listed in this book. He provides. He provides.
We have to dissect it.
Yes, everything.
I'm talking about after being other people centric. You be other people
100%.
centric. They portray you. They have their own objectives, right? Like I tell you guys all. I guess my least traumatic story when I was starting my company was hiring the intern who I thought I tried to share this vision with. I told them, listen, I'm going to pay you a salary for doing nothing just because I know that in the future with these bits to do. And I had the contract ready. And the guy was just like, nah, I'm out, dog. I had him earning on my Udemy account, courses I was paying for. And then it was like, how do you deal with that, like, betrayal? South African style. Because yes, we've definitely delved into like some stoics talking about betrayal, and I'm sure at church they turn the other cheek, and in different places you have your betrayal sentences. So I would have loved a little home version of that. Like how you deal with your circumventions in life, because they happen and then they make you someone else. You go, maybe I shouldn't greet, and then what do you do with that thought? Who do you talk to? I think direct number.
For sure. Kat, I think this book presupposes that you will succeed in lifting. So in the case study that you're putting forward to us, you failed to lift that person. You tried, but did not succeedingly lift that person. And that's the frustration. It's like, what happens when you fail to lift as you're rising, right?
Yeah.
And this book is, I think we haven't read it enough to get to the stories where specifically that they could be talking about what happens when you fail to lift, right? Yeah. Do you continue lifting? Yeah, man. Look, Kat, I think that a lot of us, this panel is going into this book already knowing and already having heard some of these principles, right? And that's why we are now kind of so obsessed about the details, right? It's like, okay, we get the general advice. When you went to school, they were like, leadership and excellence, and you had prefects and blazers and, extramural activities, go the extra mile, teamwork. You got that whole foundation. And I think part of me feels like with this book, people forget some of those foundational principles. And Bonang is just reminding them as a person who's at the highest level of leadership, of seniorship. He's reminding them that, hey, these are, you see those principles that you were trying to be taught? The reason why you're stuck in your position at your job is because you forgot them along the way.
Yeah,
you stopped.
Yeah, sure.
You stopped caring about other people. You started caring about profit. You forgot the purpose of a business. You forgot how to add value into people's lives. So he's just reminding us, because you don't often hear that, right? I know so many people in my life who believe that in order to succeed in South Africa, you need to be a corrupt, selfish prick. They really have internalized it. Yeah. So I think it's so important for somebody who's there to be like, hey, you don't have, it's kind of the same role that Naval played for me. Naval, in his book, again, also not written by him, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, there's a section where he dispels the myths about wealth. And one of those myths is that you can't gain a significant portion of wealth without compromising along the way, that you can't do it ethically, that you need to step on people's toes and F people over. And Naval, it's so important for Naval, a billionaire, to say, you don't have to do that. Certainly this way is harder, right? It's much harder. And the other way seems shorter. But this way is sustainable, more rewarding. This way fulfills your soul.
even in that comparison, he's throwing you with stories about who went to jail and who came out of jail and who still is trying to be corrupt and how short-lived that life is and how people in that space go up for a really high time, and because of their addiction to it, then just start declining. Yeah.
I mean,
book. It's the same book, right?
Which one? No, same book. But check it out, Kat. In this book, right? In this book, Bonang Tamara tells a story right in the beginning of how I think Bonang was applying to get into a degree. And this was back in the apartheid era. And I forgot which university. I think it's
Isn't it Wits?
Yeah. It's Wits. And he speaks of
being the only
candidates. No, he speaks of candidates that were more deserving of him, that were more deserving than him not getting into the program and him getting into the program.
Yeah.
Again, I get what you're saying about how Tamara could have double clicked on that, like go into that some more. I don't think she wanted to do that, but when you think about that story, again, you think about how Bonang lived through that, had to internalize that to a certain degree, and maybe our contention is that we are not witnessing fully in the book the process of internalizing what that meant for him, how he dealt with the emotions of getting into the program. Was there a sense of imposterness while he was studying? It's just, I think Bonang affected this lady in such a positive way, like he's done me, listening to him. Right? When you hear Bonang speak, it's like everything makes sense. Everything in Bonang's world falls into place. Like, oh, okay, yeah. You know how there's a big sense of acceptance with Bonang. It's like he's not battling. There's no contention on how to make it or what the world is like. Bonang has accepted, yeah, they effed up, they are selfish, yeah, that's unfair, that's evil, and it all fits, and he knows what to do with it. That's what amazes me about Bonang. It's like, I know what to do with all that information. He's not stuck in the emotion of being defeated by the circumstance, being defeated by the injustice, he does something about it. And for me, that oozes the kind of leadership that must have affected Tamara. Like, damn, dude, how there's certain people you look at and you're just like, how do you do it? Like, aren't you going through the same things we're going through? Why are you so happy?
I think some of the people express exactly what you're saying, like in the quotes, because he says some like quotes and like experiences from other people. So yeah,
for sure,
I agree with what you're saying.
You spoke about slavery earlier, Kat. Does anyone know here why he decided to call the book "Lift as You Rise"?
No,
it's out there.
No,
no,
we don't.
That deserves an L. I'm spamming L's in the chat right now. Cat spam L's in the chat. Okay.
There's only us here, Doug.
It's the spirit.
L's in the chat.
We have to lift.
Who's Martin? Oh,
hey, Martin.
Hey, shout out Martin for joining the stream.
Martin spams L's in the chat. We're talking about a book, Lift as You Rise. Martin, where you from? Tell us where you from in the chat if you're listening.
I'm not focused.
Hey, okay. Martin said Olo. Martin, tell us where you're from if you get English. This is a book club. We're talking books. So check this out. Kat, I want to give a short description of who Bonang is. I feel like we can't leave that out when we're talking about this book.
Oh, it's Martin.
Martin, spam L's in the chat. Martin, spam L's in the chat.
Thanks for joining the chat. What? Like, sound deck. We need a sound deck over there.
We do.
We need 100%. So, Kat, I have a question. Who knows what positions Bonang has held? I think it's important to understand the gravity of what's being said in this book.
I know
who knows who Bonang is.
All of them. I know he's at ESCOM right now.
Somebody dropped some stuff on me. Oh, your parents know who he is.
I know he's at ESCOM. He's at BLSA. Oh, he's at BLSA.
For sure.
He's been at MTN, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go through that. Okay, Kat knows. Cat knows.
Yeah, I know some of
Liz-
Cat took my answers. I was gonna
Oh, okay, that's convenient. Okay, Kat, so we're back. Just before our quick little intermission, for those who are not aware, we were really getting to the point of talking about Bonang's story. And we were at the part where we were describing his role at Business Unity South Africa. All right, so first of all, he's the president of Business Unity South Africa. Let me blow your minds for a second. Bonang describes Business Unity South Africa. Well, not just him. This is actually what it is.
Wait, Masego, are you reading an article?
No, these are my notes.
Okay. Oh, okay, cool. Go for
He
it.
made a flip file.
Flip file.
Go for it.
Why, Kat?
No, I was gonna share it and switch screens, but go for it.
Oh, you're able to. What do you mean, share it?
Yeah. No,
Oh, you're gonna
go
show it up. Okay, so Bonang describes Business Unity South Africa, not just him, but this is actually what it is, right? He describes it as an organization of organizations. Excuse me.
Yes.
Business Unity South Africa is the apex of business in South Africa. When we say organization of organizations, what we're saying is that think of it as like a company that does not own other individual companies. That would be a holdings company. But think about that same concept for organizations, which is it's like a holding company of holdings companies. It's just the structure is not a company, right? It's an organization. And what he means by that. So let me. Okay, simply put, it's an organization, right? So it's a formal entity that has objectives, right? But I don't think it's a company. Think more like a regulatory body. I just don't know the exact word to describe it.
Okay.
Maybe we should look it up. Kat, you actually want to share the screen? Maybe you can share a screen and look up what is Business Unity South Africa, but I'm going to describe it. Yeah. While Kat is doing that, Kat, I'm sure you can still hear me. I'm going to describe more about Business Unity South Africa.
I can still hear you.
So he describes it as the apex organization for all businesses in South Africa. Business Unity South Africa represents 80% of the entire economy, right? A good example is how, for example, all of the companies or all of the minerals in South Africa, right, are governed by or accountable to the Minerals Councils of South Africa. So all the companies that are involved in mining kind of have some representation, I would imagine, at the Minerals Councils of South Africa, right? These are mining companies. Now, the Mineral Council of South Africa, Business Unity South Africa. The Mineral Council of South Africa is member number 1 at Business Unity South Africa. Likewise, all the banks in South Africa belong to an organization called the Banking Association of South Africa. So it's like professional bodies, right? So all the banks in SA belong to the Banking Association of South Africa. That's member number 2 of Business Unity South Africa. That's just an example, right? Those are the largest productive sectors in the South African economy. The finance, the banks, and the mines. Conveniently, all the things that the EFF want to nationalize, right? So you have to imagine how high up in business society Bonang is. He's the president of the organization that all these other organizations have representation in, that are members in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but yeah.
I just don't want to say the wrong words to describe it. Like, you can think of it as a governance council. For example, if I were to give an example with a cryptocurrency governance council, there's a company called Hedera, Hashgraph, right? It's a cryptocurrency platform. And on the governance council of Hedera, right, there are all these companies. Google is a governance council member of Hedera. IBM is a governance council member of Hedera. LG is a governance council member. Standard Bank is a governance council of even the university, even certain universities. I think the university of some university in London, if I'm not mistaken. The point is, it's not just companies that form part of the organization, right? It's representatives from different sectors of society, right, that form part of the organization. So a university is not LG, it's not an electronics company. They don't work in the same way. And a university can be partly government owned, but they all form the governance council of Hedera Hashgraph's network. I would imagine that this working relationship is similar in the sense that there are representatives from all these top South African companies that form part of the representative body of Business Unity South Africa. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Right? I just want to let you look. We might not know the minute details, but this is just so you understand the level of people he's interacting with. So he's probably talking to the CEO of banks, the biggest banks in South Africa, the CEOs of mines, and many others, right? The organizations, again, that form part of Business Unity South Africa, all these businesses came together to form an organization called Business Unity South Africa, and they elected a president so that they can have a cohesive mandate. Like, although you're FNB, you're working on that, and the mining company, you're working on that, we must all kind of align our goals outside of our company's parameters to have a vision for what doing business in South Africa must be like. We all have different agendas, whether it's dealing with legislation that's red taping entrance into a market or regulate. You understand? It's just an organization that I would imagine is like a governance body. That's Business Unity South Africa, right? He's also a chairperson at Bidvest Group Limited, right? Bidvest Group Limited employs more than 120,000 people, right? And Bidvest Group Limited owns more than 350 companies. In fact, if you search Bidvest Group Limited today, it's one of the companies that's in the top 40 companies in South Africa on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So it's a listed company, right? There's also Bidvest Group Services, which is a company that manages all the cash in transit, a lot of the cash in transit companies that are constantly transporting money around South Africa, right? Bonang was also chairman, right? These are boards of directors. Bonang was also the chairman at Shell South Africa. So, right? These are not small companies, guys. This is not an unknown person. There is no business person in South Africa that doesn't in some way look up to Bonang. He not only is he involved in these companies, he sits at the highest strata of these companies as president, as chairperson, as chairman, as CEO. That's the role he plays in all these important companies. That for me took me on a bit of a process, right? Bonang also mentions that how the group CEO of Bidvest Group, right, that company that's in the top 40 biggest businesses in South Africa, the CEO of Bidvest Group is a black woman, right? Why this mattered for me is that you hear about some of the policies of certain political parties. You hear about the aspirations, nationalization of the banks, nationalization of the mines. And you start to realize that what these politicians, our so-called leaders, and I think the story of Bonang being told is important and should get out there for this very specific reason. There are certain people we think are leaders in our country, and there are certain people who really are leaders, right? And they're just humble. We don't talk about them enough. Then, right? So South Africans have this perception that politicians are their leaders, but you start to realize that the politicians only hope to amount the same level of respect that Bonang and them are getting. Right? I'm going to be specific about it. Now in coalition talks, one of the conditions of the EFF was that Floyd Shibambo should be Minister of Finance. Again, part of the EFF's policies are nationalization of banks. People like the leaders in the EFF have a way of kind of discrediting the achievements of proper Black leaders. They do that. For example, one of the criticisms of our current president, I don't want to get political in this, but, one of the criticisms...
Now you got our attention.
One of the criticisms of our current sitting president is that he's a billionaire. And I think I've heard Mr. Malema constantly repeat, Cyril is a billionaire, but what does he produce? Almost casting aspersions as if Cyril does not deserve to be a billionaire, that Cyril was given all of his wealth. And sure, there were deals where BEE deals, we call them, where certain strata of society, the controlling interest gave certain leaders with political power shares in their companies and et cetera. That's part of the history. However, and then how they discredit people like Bonang Mohale, I've even read this in Vusi Thembakwayo's books. So we're all guilty of this. I think there's a real phenomena of certain companies just putting Black people in for compliance. That's a real thing. I want to get that out the way, right? But there's not enough said about the people that they put in there for compliance, if it's for compliance sake, that it's not just anyone that gets made the token Black, they call it. That's a token Black. He's just there so that they can meet the BEE. That's where we leave it as a society, right? But you think about this. I mean, the CEO of Bidvest Group is a Black woman. Bonang Mohale is the president of Business Unity South Africa. I think there are insights that we need to hear from these people about how they're affecting change in their organizations. We're about to read a book now called Betting on a Darkie about how Mteto Nyati completely transformed the business world, transformed companies that were dying in South Africa. There are people like Mteto Nyati that exist that were the CEOs of Microsoft in South Africa that are sitting on the boards of Eskom. Like, these people are there and we need to hear more from them. So there's a reason why the words of this book, when I read them, mean that much more. If we're going to bring it back to the book, as simple and as vanilla as they might be. Again, the point being that somebody at such a position in society, positions I think even more powerful than what our so-called leaders would like us to believe, right? I made the comparison of how they discredit Cyril for being a billionaire, how their policies are but the hypocrisy is that in nationalizing the banks, there's a big difference between taking the banks, taking the land, and developing the land. There's a big difference between nationalizing the banks and building the banks. That's a different story. That story takes us to VBS, Vendor Mutual Venture. Yeah, VBS. I forgot what it stands for. But the bank from Venda that collapsed, right? Those kind of stories take us to African banks. So, yeah, I just thought it's important to point out the position that Bonang holds in order for us to take his words just that much more seriously. The fact that you can get to these high levels of society that we might think in our minds are reserved for a certain kind of people of a certain color. And now you think about the fact that he comes from a township. You think about the fact that he's a product of Bantu education. And you listen to him speak. I hope we get time, but I want to read a speech that he wrote to President Donald Trump in the book.
Yeah, I remember.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I think
you listen.
Speech, yeah.
Yeah, you think about how he talks, and you're like, I start to understand the fan nature that Tamara might have. Especially, it's coming through right in the beginning of the book, where Tamara is just like, "Listen, he's that guy. I don't know what to tell you." All right. So yeah, double click on that. I said a mouthful.
You did. It was great.
Huh? Is everybody stunned? What's going on?
Yes. I wasn't expecting it to go political, but it was necessary, definitely, for us to relate more as well to what you were explaining, especially because we had elections recently. But yeah, we said a mouthful. And it goes to show that you can come from Ekasi or a village, but it doesn't stop you from getting out there. Of course, there are constraints, definitely. The journey does come with its pitfalls, but you can still make it. And he's a pivotal example of that. Yeah.
That was a lot to take in, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, from my side, I think. Oh, let me just take these off. Jesus. From my side, I think it's yeah, it's definitely a lot to take in. It's more, again, it's better for me to comment on this conversation rather than comment on the book. You know, it feels like,
of course, that's why we do these.
Moving from the contents, right, of the book, and now talking about him in our perspective. And I applaud Tamara for creating this environment.
Exactly.
So that's important, and that we have to give her props for in its entirety, because not, like you've mentioned early, not enough is spoken about these people, So as much as I'm like, look at this, this is I mean, there's no story here. It's like, listen, hey man, I gave you the best.
There is a story there.
Out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gave you the best I could find, and you make it work out there, because out there, as much as I didn't tell whatever story you wanted, there's enough information leading sequentially for you to gather the type of human beings that are out there building, continually working with a smile above the saturated, where the world is. I guess my point is, I guess my perspective is coming from one of not realism, but the realism that I've created, right? They say we create the life we have in our mind, right? So from the experiences we have, when you get battered down, you're just like, now you kind of have a negative outlook on certain things,
100%.
People in general, and that generates over time, maybe you've been betrayed here, maybe you've been cheated on, or whatever the case may be. You just build a certain layer of, mistrust in other people, in information. I mean, we're people who dissect a lot of information and are prone to mistrust in all sorts of information that is given. It's why to this day I always tell you, oh my God, I struggle watching the news. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
100%.
I get it so that I can see live what happened for myself. But I struggle, because all the opinions are there. Yeah, I think, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I think a coalition government wouldn't be bad for the... Oh my God. And I'm just sitting there just like, okay, what does this mean?
It's not inspiring.
So 100%. It's inspiring in that sense. And I think just the conversation that we've had is inspiring in that sense, because, imagining his journey now is different to when I first picked up the book. Don't get me wrong, the pages have kind of given me what you've gotten as well. However, now when we've had the conversation, I'm having to dive.
We talk about it.
Imagine myself in that scenario, and just imagine myself now in that scenario, how ineffective I would be, how, because they say you can sulk, you can mad, you can get mad, you can throw your toys around the cot, but what changes? What happens in your environment? What and is it a positive change? Is it a negative change? Now you become a grim person. Therefore, you're not as social. You don't have as many friends. You're not really connected with your family. Okay, so now how does that play out for your life? You don't have that many, yes, as much as not having that many people around you can be a positive, less people to betray or whatever, but it can also be, a negative, less people to betray you, or a positive because less people to betray you, sorry. But it's also a negative in that, you don't get certain advice, you don't get certain, conversations just like this, where now, you're dissecting the emotions or the feelings that you're having in receiving this message or being a recipient of this message. Because I can imagine giving this book to someone in the Kasi and them going, I can imagine the initial reaction being, something like already judgmental off top, so you can't go, you have to fight through those layers of I don't want to call it ignorance, but I guess it is just plain old ignorance.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it ignorance because it too has its history, right?
Yeah, of course.
And laid out there, it too has its history. But yeah, again, ignorance, and to get through that, to get to the contents of this book and what the message is trying to give it. So I think a lot of fruit is bared in the conversation that we're having, more than just, again, like we always say, giving this book to someone in the hood and saying, read this and be inspired. I don't think,
this book won't, this book needs you to have a good foundation. You can't just...
Right. Quantity. Yeah. I think here you might need quantity over quality to just reach, and maybe it will reach someone. There is that person it will reach, but it's not one of those, you drop it here and it's like understandable for like a large majority or whatever, it's going to be picked up by a large majority, and I guess in that sense it's got some hidden gems in a story sense. And that's great, but their self like, or I guess hidden gems are self-discovered in some sense.
Of course, you gotta do the heavy lifting yourself,
the person, and relate more and be empathetic, I think, to what emotions they may be feeling, they may have been going through, or what emotions Tamara may have been going through while writing. Be empathetic to that and not just shelf it as another book. I think another thing for me in now reading a lot of books is getting into the, now that we're like used to it, it's kind of like, okay, where's that profound light bulb moment, when it doesn't happen now, it's like, this is a bad book, but you're not considering, its gravitas or its Taoism level, or where it's sitting. I say it's
in the spectrum of books,
up. And then someone below is like, oh my God, this book is this is exactly what I needed, and again, in the conversation, again, you dissect that type of thing and get that type of profound, oh, wow, this is actually helpful in my life, applies here, applies there. And because like we say, for someone with thick skin in the hood right now, who's going through everyday life, it, probably even tuning into the stream, is still like, man, these private school kids don't know life.
They don't know what I had to go through. Talk about not knowing life, Kat. Also part of Bonang's history is that his parents were not only, what's the word here? Not only unlearned, they were unlettered. So his parents did not know how to read. So we just skip past these things. Just imagine what that means, right? We have criticisms of our parents now, and they at least can read. They can, they can at least read. Bonang taught his parents how to read. Again, his dad died at 17. Those conditions, again, being in his environment, and then his attitude is unbelievable to me. The attitude is unbelievable. It's like he's one of those people you feel like, we don't deserve this guy. We don't deserve this guy. I like what you're saying, Katlego, about how easy it is to get consumed by the information in the world, to gain a negative perspective and be just like everyone else, just hopeless about politics, and even the people that you think are in the highest strata of society, you look at them and you're like, him? That's I almost said something that might get us in trouble, but that's our, him. And I think the lesson here is go out there and look for them. They're there. And the fact that they look like us, I think, is what's having the big impact here. I index the books, so I don't know if I can show you. When I read a book, I index it like this. So I have flags. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Okay. I have flags, and then the flags kind of describe what's happening. Maybe there's a light plot point, there's a core plot.
Nigga, are you using a Croxley board to write your shit? Is your handwriting that bad?
That is the
dog, we're still doing this. We're still doing this. Dog, this was 2023 podcast. We're still here.
I'm sorry.
Right. And there's a couple of things that I've indexed here that I would have loved to go to, but it looks like we're really, man, I forgot just how much there is to talk about when we have these podcasts.
That's why I was like, wow, people are so worried.
But this is the best time to stream, because I hope we never have to, but if you can go on for 8 hours, just chatting.
Just keep going. But you really hope we don't get there.
I didn't hear that. I couldn't hear you properly.
Oh,
Who?
yes, I forgot. We're supposed to zoom in. I was just saying that one of the pros of Twitch is that we can go on for like up to 8 hours if Masego really, really wanted to.
8 hours. Guys.
No, I won't survive on a stream for 8 hours of us just
8
talking
hours.
about a book.
Hey,
I'm going to need like to go eat and like, I mean, I will survive, but I'll need like to go eat, and we did like a lot of breaks, and I need to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
of course. I hope one day we get to 5-hour long podcasts. I hope.
No,
I hope.
sure.
Like
I think we
pray
can make
someday. It's kind of like leaving it for the world.
We must all order food,
Yeah.
drinks and stuff, and be
Smokes.
prepared, and, and just be ready.
You know what, Ken? I think the evolution, if we can get it there, sorry guys, if we can get it there, I think the evolution of this will be us having a conversation where when we come out the other side, we can't be the same people. It's like, if everybody sits through it with us, it's like, damn, nothing was left unsaid. And I would love a project like that, just because I don't think anyone would do it. Right? Just because I don't think anyone would do it, talking about a book, seeing people just chat for hours and hours. You
did say people do it. People do it. He was about to interject on me. People do it. Yeah. When he was talking about, I'm nervous, man. We're streaming on Twitch, though, man. It's not the same. I was like, yeah, let me.
You didn't tell me we're on OBS. I'm big on OBS. Here's a quote from the book. Here's a quote to bring it back to the book, right? You start accepting that all along you thought that you were in charge, and then it dawns on you that you're actually not. Your own colleagues, the people who support you that have been in charge all along. This brings me to the difference between empowering people and emancipating them. Empowering is the power that comes from somebody who gives it to another, whereas emancipation says, how can I get you free? How can I free you up to go and find your own new sources of knowledge? And I think that quote encapsulates why I approach books the way that I do. It's like, dog, I'm not going to free you. You want the answers from me? I'm not going to give them to you, but I'm going to emancipate you. Right? Yeah. It's kind of like you have to emancipate yourself. Semantics things. But I thought that was a pretty powerful quote that encapsulates a lot of the things that we've been saying. And then, if you will let me, the speech. What do you guys think of the speech?
It was good.
The one,
good.
The open letter to Donald Trump.
It was strangely calm for how, I guess, irate his version of commentary was. Not strangely calm, but it was like not even like derogatory or.
Yeah, I think he was as polite as he could.
Yeah, but still very stern. And like with some seriousness, like.
But I think it was actually well written. Like, you can't come back and fight. What are you fighting?
Ignorant people can.
True.
You're ignorant.
You know what I mean.
They're Africans. They don't know what they're talking about.
And it was very necessary for him to respond to Donald like that in a respectable way. Goes to show
it's crazy
you
how
don't have to be vulgar to,
to get your point across.
to get your point
Right.
across.
Even
Yeah,
lower
yeah.
yourself
Always.
to
I
that
said this to Kat yesterday. There's always a better adjective to use apart
Cheese.
from
Yeah. When you wanted to say shit, I remember
yeah.
that.
You know where that attitude of his, that just shows how you know your upbringing. You know where that attitude of his comes from? That whole, you don't have to say it in a derogatory way. His father, right? His father, when he was a kid, there were these coal trucks that would ride around, right? Trucks transporting coal.
Where was the story in the book?
Again, I do. Maybe it's there. I don't know. I didn't read the whole book.
No, all what I'm learning right now is like you're saying, the emancipation. It's like,
Okay.
the book is not
You
the
gotta-
entire story, right? Go do your own work, and then
For
later
sure.
you'll find, if you're really searching, then you'll find. You can't
100%.
just sit on your couch, buy a book, and be like, "All right, tell me something."
So there's a story where during apartheid, the full truck, right, that are driving around, and the kids who were naughty used to jump on the back of them or something like that, right, and ride on the trucks. So this one day, Bonang is on the truck and his dad is coming home from work or whatever, and Bonang's dad sees Bonang on the truck, and he sees his dad see him on the truck. And in Bonang's childhood, like all of our childhoods, you could not be home before the sun sets. Like the first question his parents would ask him when he gets home is, "Where's the sun?" And if it has set, you get a beating, okay, get a hiding. That day, he didn't come home when he was supposed to because he was scared that his dad saw him riding on the back of that truck. So he threw all those principles out and he was just petrified. He didn't want to come home. He came home, and I can't remember the specific details, whether they were sitting or eating or what happened. But to his amazement, his dad said nothing, like nothing about the incident.
Yeah.
A couple of days went by. And then one day his dad calls him in a more jolly mood, right? Bonang describes how he knew his dad was in a jolly mood. And he says, "Bo," that's what he calls Bonang. "Hey, Bo." Bonang comes running. Bonang's dad is like, "Do you know that if you like misstep while sitting on the back of that truck, you can die, right?" Bonang said, "Yes." And that's all the dad said about the situation. Bonang was furious because he said for those days he was scared out of his mind. Those days of silence, he didn't know what was going to happen to him, when he's going to die, when they're going to beat him to a pulp. And he describes his dad as intrinsic, like his dad knew the royalty within him. Like his dad was never one much to raise his voice. He says his dad would raise the level of his argument. And he says ever since that day, when he saw his friends playing on those trucks, on the railways, whatever, I think it was trains, it might not be trucks, might be getting the details. He's like, he never was even tempted to get onto one because his dad spoke to him. And I think that plays out perfectly towards his attitude now, that he remains with that attitude of, you don't shout, you don't swear. Like he's not Julius's type of leadership. Sorry, Julius. He's not Julius's type of leadership. He's more of like raise the level of the argument, and you feel that in the letter that he writes to Donald Trump, where you read it, you're like, damn, you're saying he's polite, but it's like scathing at the back somewhere. Like it's like,
I mean, it is, but it's still polite,
it's still said nicely. That's leadership. That's leadership. Another thing is, think about the audience he was talking to. So Donald Trump was going to a presentation. This is in the book, right? Donald Trump was going to a presentation at the World Economic Forum. If they say Davos in the book. If you don't know what Davos is, it's in Switzerland. And that's where the World Economic Forum convenes, right? So he was kind of setting up a protest. And the type of people that go to the World Economic Forum are business leaders from the highest echelons of every society, not just South African society. He's convincing them that we should protest Donald Trump's speech at Davos. So even where he chooses to fight these battles, I think if you go into it enough, this is the art of war for Black people from the township. If you can't relate to the other books, because the way this guy moves, we're going to talk about it for years to come. We're going to revisit this book. And yeah, I was going to read the speech, but I don't think we need to. Guys?
Can I just read one quote that resonates
Go for it.
with me the most, just for interest's sake? It goes as follows. Before you can find a way to make those pieces of the puzzle fit together, you need to be aware of the fact that you don't always know what's best, and you need to be willing to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and learn not to be threatened by that. This quote resonated with me the most because sometimes I tend to think I know everything and no one knows everything. So be open to getting criticized and being told what to do. It's important. So yeah. Oh, thank you. Yay. Yo.
W's in the chat. Fifi, I know you guys have been pulling out quotes the whole week, the whole month on Instagram, and they've been fire, by the way. There'll be fire emojis in the chat for that.
That's all Lizzie.
Oh, wow. Any quotes, Kat, Fifi, that resonated with you guys as we bring this to a close, I think?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, right?
Lift as
for
you
sure.
rise.
It's more the content that I guess enjoy. Just listening to some of the roles he's played, some of the ideals he shared in the speeches he's given.
Yeah.
I'm now getting into the part where he's talking about businesses' influence on apartheid, obviously, in the ANC, and how business was allowed a voice back in the day, and that that kind of I guess spoke to me in a sense. We're trying to build businesses and build business and build businesses, but yeah.
Yes, we need to come back to this book. You said some important things there. That's important. That's a whole other conversation.
These are initial thoughts, right? Which we should probably put in like brackets because
100%
early in the book. But yeah.
Fifi, any quotes?
No, I don't have any quotes. Again, I'm not very far into the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I have liked what I've read so far.
Yeah.
I think it gives you something to take away from it, but I don't have a quote right now.
Check this out. I want to end off, if I may, if we are ending it off. I don't want to cut you guys off.
Yeah,
and there's still more to share.
It has been like an hour, 40-minute session. I think
okay.
We're good here.
All right. If I were to end it off, what we're doing here is we are lifting others as we rise through this podcast, in this conversation itself. As I rise in my knowledge while reading the book, I'm lifting the people that I am having a conversation with about the book right now. And then we're going to put it up online for other people to come across. Whoever gets impacted will get impacted by this video. I want to end it off with the very essence of the book. I asked the question earlier, do you know why he called it Lift As You Rise in the beginning? It's Lift As You Rise. I just don't know how to spell the word, but he called it, and it's an African adage, he said. I don't know how to spell adage. I couldn't find what adage means. I would imagine it's something akin to an idiom, an African idiom. It's a saying, an old wisdom. And it goes hand in hand with the quote, each one, teach one. Now, the significance of that saying is that while there was an exodus of teachers during apartheid, the teachers were protesting the introduction of Bantu education. More specifically, then using Afrikaans as an instructional medium. What got popularized as a political saying, and I'm going to read you actually an article on that, was the saying, each one teach one. Bonang says each one teach one is of African origin, but some more studying made me realize that that phrase goes back further into the past. I have it here on Wikipedia, and I'm going to just read you this. It won't take time. It says the phrase originated in the United States during the times of slavery. Look at the similarities. When Africans were denied education, including learning to read. Many, if not most enslaved people were kept in a state of ignorance about anything beyond their immediate circumstances, under which were under the control of the owners, the lawmakers, and the authorities. Just think about what we're going through even under the rule of Black people today. When an enslaved person learned or was taught to read, it became the duty to teach someone else. So if you knew how to read, it was your duty to teach someone else, spawning the phrase, each one teach one. And then there's a section here on Africa. Many of the political prisoners on Robben Island during South Africa's apartheid were illiterate. Their mail was highly sensitive. So all the emails, or the mail, sorry, not email, mail, that they were getting, if it was stuff that was threatening, information that was threatening, they would censor it. And the reading materials, what they were allowed to read in the prisons, was also limited. Steve Biko's book was famously banned, right? Oh, his writing, sorry, that then became the book. I write what I like, as the same kind of protest. The inmates used the term each one teach one as a battle cry to ensure that everyone in the movement was educated. So don't take for granted what we're doing with Abby's book club. I think the biggest reflection is that we are embodying the same lessons that Bonang is trying to teach here. And the bigger realization is that we are on the same path he went through. Kat, all of our lessons on leadership has been about, your friends are like that, but you can't hate them. Yeah, your parents are like that, but you have to love them. You still have to teach them. You must fight for an ethical business. So here at Abbey, we're doing the same. As we learn about governments, as we learn about nation states, stuff in books, as we learn about leaders, as we learn about systems, monetary systems, we all teach each other. And it's once, Kat, you always ask me the question, what do you do then with this information once you get it? Well, each one teach one. Go teach someone else.
Go show someone else.
I think with that, that's a brilliant point to bring our first episode to a close.
Our first Twitch.
Spam.
Oh.
Yeah.
Emojis in the chat.
Spam W's in the chat. Everyone spam W's in the chat. Kat, I see you. Thank you for the donation.
I did not donate anything.